It's time now to check your money with America's money maven, Vicki Brackens. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial, member SIPC. Vicki, what a week, what a week, what a week.
George, it feels like much more than a week, okay? Thinking about all the things that have happened over the last 7 days. But you're right, what a week. Just to recap for everybody and for those people who are listening to us around the world, Syracuse had one of those, what we would call weeks in history. Not only did we have earlier in the week, the Alvin Ailey 2 troop here, which was here to celebrate the 50th anniversary of CFAC. We also had on Monday, the beginning of a series of events, which were I would call listening tours and get to know you tours from Micron Corporation, which most of you now know is building a $100 billion fabrication facility out in Clay, just north of Syracuse. But at the end of the week, George, okay, my nose is a little stopped up this week, but we had the President of the United States of America land here and come in to celebrate with everyone here in Syracuse, because he has, first of all, of course, you would expect the president with such a monumental event that was focused on legislation that was passed under his administration for the CHIPS Act. You would expect him to be here. But we also remember, and all of us know, that he has an orange background because of being a graduate student and a law student here at Syracuse University. But he brought in with him many members of the team that were part of the exploration and forming of that CHIPS Act legislation, being Senator Chuck Schumer, Senator Kristen Gillibrand, and of course our own governor, Kathy Hochul, who made sure that New York State received all of the benefits that they could under the new legislation by passing the Green Act here shortly earlier in the year to welcome Micron and everyone concerning the Micron team and this incredible opportunity to the Syracuse upstate New York market. So yes, George.
Yeah, it couldn't have been, and it couldn't have been done. Sanjay Malhotra was very, very clear that without those two pieces of legislation, this deal would never have happened.
That is absolutely true. Okay. And he was very, as you said, very, very clear on that. And a lot of folks might be thinking, well, why would the CHIPS Act, why would the fabrication of semiconductors be such a big deal? But if you stop and think about what happened and how the economy started to come to a grinding halt, because we realized during the earlier stages of the pandemic that the fact that we could not get semiconductor chips from Taiwan into the United States because of the supply chain disruptions, that posed not only a manufacturing and economic slowdown for the country, but we couldn't get cars, you couldn't get washing machines, everything that we have, and it created a national security concern for the country going forward. So this legislation under the Biden administration and Hochul administration, along with Senator Chuck Schumer, and he really, really knocked it out of the park with that legislation, has really placed not only an economic opportunity for Syracuse, for the upstate New York area, but for the entire country as we move forward into the next generation of manufacturing. And what you remember, George, talked about this some time ago when we decided to look at the Industrial Revolution, the fourth Industrial Revolution. Syracuse is now on top of the fourth Industrial Revolution and leading that effort across the country.
It's very exciting to have
I
Syracuse in
have
that same
heard,
breath.
and I got a few more minutes here, George, because I was so happy about that.
Yeah.
That was really not going to be my full topic today. But, okay, what was, okay, part of my full topic today was what I'm calling red, blue, and green.
Come on.
Because I have been asked several times when we look at what's happening concerning the midterm elections, and this is not a political commentary, this is absolutely an economic commentary.
Yeah, she'll
and I
leave that to
should say
me.
before I go forward, okay, that this is not specific investment advice, that you should consult your own research and also your own investment advisor and tax preparer for any advice that's coming following this conversation. But if we look at history, and have been asked, Vicki, when we look at what's coming up with the midterm elections, what do you think is going to happen if we have a change in political power during the midterm elections? Will the Republicans, if they should sweep the two houses, actually create better economic conditions? And George, I knew the answer, but I also wanted to make sure that before I gave the answer, that I encouraged everybody to go out and do some research, because back in, I think it was probably 2020, like in July, in fact, July 23rd, Forbes in 2020 did a very extensive review of information that everybody in the investment world knows, and that being the fact that although conventional wisdom says that liberal Democrats are really bad for the economy and the stock market is for big business and government tendencies, that having fiscal conservatives are really good for the economy. If you go back and look, the actual data going all the way back to World War II to 1945, this widely accepted belief is actually fake news. If you look at the data going back to the end of World War II, the stock market performs better under Democrats than Republicans, and all of us in the economic world knows this, but it doesn't necessarily imply cause and effects, as Jeremy Siegel, who most of you probably have seen on TV. He's the Russell E. Palmer Professor of Finance at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. But from 1952, through June of 2020, if you analyze the real stock market returns under Democrats, the return has been, listen to this, George, 10.6%, compared with Republicans at 4.8%. So if we're just looking at stock market returns and looking at what the return in value has been under different administrations, then we know that the old adage that the market does better under Republicans is actually not the facts, and not facts that can be substantiated.
And Forbes is not Forbes is a business magazine, so they don't have a dog in the fight. They're just giving you analysis.
That's correct. Okay. And so now we're looking back into 2020. This is what I really also found interesting. We felt that a Democratic sweep was almost certain, and it did actually happen. We thought that there was going to be a rollback of President Trump's massive corporate tax cuts, and that would be negative for stocks, and that we felt like additional stimulus would come into the market. And additional stimulus, if you recall, if you really look at what's happened over the years, additional stimulus usually is good for the market, and that we were going to get a more stable China trade, and that was also going to be a big positive. But you know what, George? None of that happens. You know why?
Why?
Think about the date that I gave you. This was written July of 2020.
Oh, well,
what happened right behind that?
The pandemic.
The pandemic happened.
Well, it was happening actually, because I'm thinking about it. Their deadlines are like really, right? So we were actually in the middle of it when you think about it.
We were starting to get right into the thick of things, as they would say.
Right.
So because of that, one of the things that did not happen was the rollback of the corporate tax cuts, which was what was being spoken about on the campaign trails. What did continue to happen was the continuation of stimulus, and to an even bigger degree. What didn't happen is actually a more stable relationship with China. So many of the predictions that were being campaigned about did not happen. And what did happen, we had COVID, we had lockdowns, we had the end of, or the beginning of supply chain issues. So many things that were predicted didn't happen, and new business cycles formed. But getting back to my point, because I've also been asked, can you prove this, Vicki, as far as Democrats being more productive as far as markets are concerned? So I want you to look at the top 5 administrations and the returns that we've had from their administrations throughout. So the Clinton administration was actually the strongest for the market, and that was 210% during their time frame. Obama's administration was number 2, and that was 182% increase in value for the stock market. And we had Eisenhower, which was 129%. Ronald Reagan comes in at number 4, which is 117%, and Harry S. Truman at number 87. Ironically, George, the last person on the list happens to be, unfortunately, George Bush. And as you know,
George
we got
Bush?
Slammed with the financial crisis, and so he's
40. Okay, son.
44.
Okay. Yeah, 43.
Okay, 44.
43.
Excuse me, 43. Okay, yeah. 43.
We know who 44 was.
Oh, that's true. Sorry, 43. Okay, 43. Okay. So one of the things that we really want to look at, though, is that I hope everyone will stop and think about what's really most important to understand as far as stock market returns. It's not necessarily just focusing on the administration that's there, but what's most important is to understand what business cycle we are in, because it's the business cycles that are going to determine how you profit or not within market returns, understanding the business cycle. And based on that business cycle, making the right moves in order to take advantage of or prepare for the next cycle of the market. Because you should remember that $1,000 invested in the index of the largest U.S. companies, the stock index, if you put $1,000 in back in January of 1945, you would have had a compounded annual rate of return of 11%. And that return would have been worth $2.3 million by the end of 2019. Can you imagine that, George? $1,000 investment in 1945, and you just let it sit there and compound at 11% with dividends and capital gains reinvested. That would have been $2.3 million by the end of 2019. Always remember, bull markets are born out of bear market cycles. We are in a bear market cycle right now. What does that mean? A bull market will be born again out of a bear market cycle. You need to get prepared. You need to make sure that you understand what the business cycle is doing, how to prepare for and weather through whatever is involved in the business cycle that you're in at the current time. All right, George, I want to encourage everybody, like and share on YouTube. You can reach us at area code 315-930-4499, extension 102. Again, 315-930-4499, or at info@Brackens Financial Solutions Network, BrackensFSN.com. And I'll say now, our plate is full.
All right. Vicki Brackens is the president of Brackens Financial Solutions Network, LLC, and a registered representative of LPL Financial. Member SIPC, she is America's Money Maven.